fasting the right way and fasting the wrong way as a Christian. I used to be a monk in a very strict order that was penitential. It was a Roman Catholic idea. And, you hear a lot about penance, the atonement theory in the West, that God is an angry God, angry because of sin, and needs people to punish, principally his son. So he sent him, beat him up, felt a bit better after. But he still requires his followers to submit to the same lashings, the same punishments. But deep down, he loves you. He just needs to beat you up. He just needs to punish you because you're ever so sinful. You sinner. These things are caricatures, but nevertheless, I lived this for about 6 years of my life in an order called Gloomy in Spain. And our fasting was very gloomy. Our fasting was very pessimistic over time. Why theology is so important. The philosophy underpinning what we're actually doing really matters. Because what it led me to believe is, fasting's really gloomy, fasting's really depressing. I'd rather not do it. When actually it's a very joyful thing. And I think many of the seculars today are discovering how joyful it is because they're doing it properly and they're reaping benefits from it. Where it's not meant to leave us emaciated, zapped, and kill us, It's meant to be life transforming. It's medicine for the soul. And of course, we're better to learn about that than in the Orthodox faith, where fasting is part of the hospital treatment, where the church is a hospital for fallen, for sinners, not a courtroom. So that's the big difference, rediscovering the joy and the true meaning of fasting. It's not punishment. God doesn't need to punish us. God wasn't punishing his son. Jesus is God. Freely chose the task of the narrow way, the cross, the resurrection. It's a way of humility, of submission to God the Father, of humility and raising up to the heights of heaven. That is Christianity. And true fasting, then, today I'm looking at this book from the Dictionary of Biblical Theology by Leon Defoe, which is a classic in every theological faculty still. And basically, he says that fasting, the essence of fasting, is not to arrive at some, psychological condition, psychological high. It is rather to enter into humility, into a humble state of abandonment before God. God, we can't do this. Like King Josaphat facing his enemies, the Moabites and others. We simply can't go against them. God says to the king, fast, declare a fast, sing hymns, submit yourself to me, live in dependency of me, as previously you've lived, maybe in dependence of yourself and your human means. This is the power of fasting in the Christian dimension of fasting. Here we have in 1 Kings 23, 25, Ahab's story, where Ahab is told that basically, there's bad stuff coming to you because of all. Elijah says to him, it's going to go bad for you, mate, because you've been, married to this Jezebel and, committing all kinds of idolatry. Well, watch yourself. Ahab repents. He wears sackcloth, the monk's habit, and he starts to fast. And God says, because you've humbled yourself, that's verse 29, 1 Kings 21:29. Have you seen how Ahab has humbled himself? Because he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring the disaster in his days. He's humbled himself before me. So that's what we do in Christian fasting, humbling ourselves before God. And Daniel's told the same in Daniel 10. It says here, and I looked it up last night, he starts to fast. He starts to humble himself before the presence of the Lord, calling out to God. And it's the angel Gabriel sent to him, and he reaches out to him and he says, from the minute you started to humble your soul in the presence of God, I heard you and was brought to you. This is fasting, to enter into the presence of God, body and soul and mind, in a state of humility and dependence on God. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word which comes from the mouth of the Lord. Of course, done with supervision, with discernment. In the Orthodox faith, we have a spiritual father tradition, or a spiritual mother, that we would go to and kind of, get permission or a blessing to do the fasts that we require to do. It's a very good practice. Hope that's useful.